leading and taking all the responsibilities to ask very important questions today to our guest. So we already have a guest with us today. Welcome, ma'am. Mr. Verda Yusuf, our creative head for the Confluence. How are you doing, ma'am?
Absolutely fine.
Perfect. That's
Alhamdulillah.
great. So, thing is that our topic for the day, I think it's needed the hour as well because everybody is kind of, you know, going in circles when it comes to learning their own emotions, looking and keeping an eye on their own emotions and responding accordingly, especially at the workplace. Of course, we need to be emotionally intelligent everywhere, except when we sleep. All our waking hours is basically when we're interacting with other people and not just other people with the environment as well, even at the road if somebody is driving. So yes, we are even in interacting with the road itself, with the environment itself, with the vehicle itself. But those are things that can be managed better as compared to human beings. Why? Because human beings are usually unpredictable. So this element of unpredictability, this variation in emotions, that actually is affected by minutest of the issues. I mean, temperature can affect somebody's emotions, their emotional state, or something bigger from something from quanta to anything that is bigger enough, any big event that might have taken place or anything. So it affects our interaction during the work hours. So, beginning with what exactly emotional intelligence is, why do we need to be good at it, especially in this modern era, and why exactly it has become the most sought soft skills of the day. Wow.
Right. Thank you so much for the introduction. I think it's always good to be here on a platform where we can discuss very relevant topics where people can be educated about a few things. So, like you very rightly said, there are areas and there are places where sometimes people are, not really sure about what terms are we really using. Emotional intelligence, to be very, very precise, has to do with you being aware of your own emotions and then managing them. That's how I simply put it for people also to understand. That's how it actually makes sense. So, yeah, that's the simplest, most definition I could put for any layman person to understand. Yeah. So Hanan, you're not audible.
Thank you very much. Since the technology was failing me a little, but yeah, we are back on track. So the next and the most important question right now, everybody is seeking that. Why exactly it has turned out to be one of the most unique skills that every company wants actually to focus on, and there are specific tests that the recruits are made to undergo and to determine their emotional quotient. We definitely will go into detail what exactly EQ is and why it is different from IQ. But why it is so important for the companies now that they are focusing so much looking at this very important skill as far as their recruitment drives are concerned. So how it affects them in a larger scale.
So, if you ask me, I think everybody who's now working right now, or maybe in a leadership position, or even working at a level that is where you are reporting to a line manager, and I also request Sanan to also display our presentation where we can talk a little bit about it with reference. So it's very interesting to discuss how people who were working in an organization, be it a leadership position or somewhere in other ranks that they are, they will eventually realize that hiring has always, I mean, I prefer it to be only for the aptitude and the mindset, honestly, because that helps you build the skill set later on. You can work on the intelligence of that person maybe later to a certain extent. You can work on their skills, but emotions and managing them and their repertoire is something that you have to really hire them for. That value system brings a lot of value to the table. So hiring people for the right, let's just say, um, aptitude is what I look for. So for that, emotional intelligence is very crucial. Looking forward to it, IQ will come in handy when there are problems. Of course, problem solving comes in as well. However, emotional intelligence always plays a very, very important role. There are many decisions that are happening on the table. Sometimes they are collaborative projects. People are talking with each other, etc. People tend to sort of fall out sometimes, right? But for that, emotional intelligence plays a lot big role. Why is that so? So there are projects never going to be working only with one brain. You need your whole team to come together. When teams are operating on a project, you want them to all be on the same page. Of course, there will be disagreements, but then how to handle those disagreements also is a big deal. और उसको मैनेज करने के लिए यू रिक्वायर पीपल टू कम ऑन बोर्ड विद यू, साथ में एक टेबल पे बैठकर तसल्ली से यू नीड टू मैनेज योर ओन इमोशंस, बी अ गुड लिसनर एज वेल एट द सेम टाइम व्हेन यू आर स्पीकिंग टू मच. So considering all that, emotional quotient plays a very big role. Thank you so much, Anand, for playing this presentation at the back end. So it's a very small, people who
You're
are
welcome.
watching, I'd like to let them know that this is a very small snippet that we're trying to show you to sort of build a bit of a platform for you all to understand how critical it is to understand EQ. So this was somewhat a philosophy or a concept that was introduced by Meyer and Soloway back in 1990s. So we're talking about millennials being born, और हम एक जनरेशन की बात कर रहे हैं जो भी समझ ही रही थी कि ये भी क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है, बिकॉज हम बहुत ही ऑपरेशनल स्ट्रक्चर के साथ, मैकेनिस्टिक स्ट्रक्चर के साथ चल रहे थे. Everything was pretty much industrialized. The processes were supposed to be according to a certain procedure. तो हम उसी तरह काम भी robots की तरह करने के लिए हमसे expectation थी. We were just following orders. But your emotional quotient came into being as a concept, and people started realizing it was being discussed that it is actually basically the capacity of recognizing our own feelings, and of course for others as well. Eventually, motivating ourselves and then managing our emotions in ourselves as well as our relationships, which means handling other people. So your emotions have to be handled and managed the right way. It is very critical to your behavior and moving very smoothly through social situations, making critical choices in life. You see, this particular framing and this particular polishing of this particular quotient, because it's actually maneuverable. You can learn it. You can learn to harness it, that is. In that particular, this particular quotient, we're talking about you working on a skill set that will help you traverse through your work life. At the same time, your any relationships, even in life. So this particular skill helps you everywhere. Moving on, it's also ranked sixth on the top most important skills of the future by the World Economic Forum as well. So, Hanan, if any comment you would like to make on this, please.
Thank you very much for enlightening us, ma'am. But I would really like if you could emphasize a little more, because there is a statement in this slide, if our viewers can see it, that EQ is critical to managing our behavior,
Mm-hmm.
moving smoothly through social situations, and making critical choices in life.
Hmm.
So, if we just limit it or focus on the workplace,
Hmm.
and there are so many incidents that take place because only if somebody could have taken a couple of seconds of a pause
Hmm.
while responding, probably in a meeting, because usually in a meeting it does happen
Hmm.
that people get into heated arguments, and then you know what, they take personal, they get a little personal with each other, because in the hindsight, on the back, on the context of the background, there is always something going on because people are coexisting. So
Absolutely.
how exactly, if we take meeting as a scenario,
Hmm.
and we have a manager who's leading the meeting, how can they keep these emotions in check, regulate them,
Hmm.
and why it is so important to stay on the topic, and how it helps, if you could elaborate a bit.
Yeah, please. Thank you so much. So, like I also mentioned in my introduction, so there will be situations at workplace where you're supposed to manage your emotions at the same time listen to the other person. Like I said, right? So, when we're talking about emotional intelligence at the workplace, in present scenarios or in any scenario for that matter, एक बात हमें दिमाग में जो हमें रखनी चाहिए, something that we should really really understand and acclimatize ourselves with, is understanding your own role and then managing your emotions. So I'm talking about my EQ as a leader per se, and maybe my IQ as a line manager per se, and then as a reporter also, or a reportee, right? So ऐसा भी होता है कि कभी आप मीटिंग से बैठे होते हैं और sometimes it's a little difficult for people to keep their emotions inside, but then as a leader उनका emotional context में भी अगर आप देखा जाए, उनका emotion is more towards the listening angle, and then there is some policy talking or whatever, decision making, etc. However, workplace where you will often come across situations where people will not be on the same board. And of course, I don't expect my team also to be on the same page. There will be disagreements, and like I said, we can always agree to disagree in the end. But then again, harnessing the entire emotional balance in the situation, coming towards a solution and understanding कि eventually we have to reach one goal, and for that we have to manage ourselves because emotional beings हैं हम इंसान तो emotion से भरा हुआ है. And of course, when there is diversity also in the workforce, maybe there's a different set of opinion coming from the female workforce, from workforce. It is just actually very very relative to the situation also. So for that particular matter, men to understand how to be courteous and be polite, at the same time women to be courteous and polite towards the opposite gender, that particular emotion that has to be only understood. ये parity को भी आप balance out कब करते हैं, जब आपके अंदर emotional quotient कहते हैं ना, emotional intelligence पैदा हो जाती है. So yes, there will be situations where people will not really be on the same board with each other, on the same page with each other. In those critical, situations, people need to understand what is happening, understand the real goal really, and then work towards it. But then again, you can't be unreasonable. That's something that everybody in the room needs to understand. And then harnessing and balancing your emotions has to be there. If I don't know, Sir Nan, have I answered your question? Is it there, or please add something with me? I'll really appreciate.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was very much spot on, but definitely, the temperature at times during the official gatherings, during the official interaction, even while passing through each other in the corridors, that gets a little tensed. And I think beyond the leaders, because at times there are so many expectations from the leaders or managers, and if we talk about in technical sense, these are too high that they pin the managers down, because at the end of the day a manager is a human being, and we sometimes forget that there are so many expectations from the managers that
True.
people, they rather don't understand that they also are human beings. Like you said, that human beings are emotional beings, by the way, and the manager also keeps emotions. They could have had a bad day already. They could have had a bad interaction with somebody on the roads when they were driving to the office. So in that sense, they could also be in a different state of mind. So it's not just that, in my view, taking your point a little ahead and adding my 2 cents on it, that it has to be a mutual process, because at the end of the day, the followers, they need to, the team members, they need to be emotionally intelligent as well. And this is why it is so crucial that every team member should have a good sense of reading the emotions of the other person. And that's why it's equally crucial for the organizations to conduct these trainings regularly. you know Not
I
just to
agree.
regulate the emotions, they have to regulate their policies regarding the interaction in the workplace. So that's what I personally believe. And of course, yeah, it was spot on. And but this is another angle usually, that
Absolutely. I'd
sometimes.
like to sort of follow that through. Yes, you're absolutely, concurring with the point. Let me also stress enough, and I'm sure people who can probably be, who'll be watching will also agree. The biggest hurdle, I feel, the biggest hurdle in anything getting done at workplace or getting your work done at workplace is people's management. The moment that gets sorted out, I think I can be more efficient also. And I think people who are managing teams will agree to that. At the same time, people who are coming and working under a certain leader will also agree to that, because sometimes these just not being able to manage emotions of your counterpart or your colleague sort of hinders your work too, so that blockade nobody wants. And I think I can be much more efficient with my team should people management should reduce in certain percentage. So yes, this is the biggest hurdle that we face. I mean, that people management takes a lot of time. And why is that really happening? Because people are not able to manage their own emotions, which is why we are trying to emphasize on the fact how to manage your own emotions is an important part of your life. Ji.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. So, move to the next slide, of course. But this is a contrast between IQ and EQ, because you know
Yeah.
what? Until we were into fourth industrial revolution, until we were actually into 2000s, by the way, the expectations were very much what I would say automated on the part of human beings, because they were just doing minimal tasks, and there was not a lot of pressure because there were not much technology. So if I just take this example of the communication, because somebody who used to work at office, they could be accessible, approachable when they were in office. When they were back at home or they were traveling, there was no means to contact them. They were not carrying any smart device with them. There were no WhatsApp. There were no email culture at all. Now that is, everybody is expected to be, what I would say, accessible at all times. Especially the bigger you're on the ladder when it comes to hierarchy,
Uh-huh.
your personal space, it just narrows down. It's not there anymore.
Very
So
true.
then it was pretty okay. So how do we contrast between those individuals who have got higher IQ and
Hmm.
now those individuals who are expected to have higher EQ, because there is a lot of pressure, because there is a lot of unseen pressure, invisible pressure, which is there, of course, can be sensed, but probably cannot be explained. So how can exactly emotional intelligence help out a leader to sense that what is going on with their employees, and how they can cultivate this culture among the team members to look for each other's emotional cues, and how it helps in a healthy workplace environment.
That's a brilliant question. I think looking at just the diagram, it could not have been more appropriate and accurate to have placed on this particular slide. So this is the most applicable recipe to success, I feel. And why is that? देखिए, I feel there have been tremendous number of incidents where I've just stood out from a very, very credible crowd in the same lane, in the same parity, and I'm talking about the same demographic, I'm talking about the same designation. I've only stood out in my achievements, and I'm giving my example particularly is to so that I'm able to relate only because of the EQ sense. Simple. So people, I have felt, and I'm so sorry, this is going to come off very, very rough to some people, but people with a lot of with high emotion, and with that I mean they're very impulsive, they're very, very provocative. Let's just say at the so they can just be, let's just say, angered very instantly. Such people tend to fail early. I'll just be very simple with that and very direct. I'm so sorry, but this has to do with your emotions. See, your team does not come to you and speak to you no any longer if you're not there to be listening here. Or if they have seen your reactions being impulsive, they are not going to be coming to you. You're not approachable anymore. So I feel as long as I've earned this particular merit and have come to this position on my credibility and all the credentials that I fulfill and all the tick in the boxes I am. But should I fail as a human? Should I fail in my self awareness and then regulating that, or being motivated towards what I want to do and I want my team to be driven there as well? I will definitely fail. That has nothing to do with being an amazing person on the job, doing your filing system. No, your people are not happy, your boss is not going to be happy with you eventually. Why? Because there's going to be turnover of employees. People would not like to be working with you or under you. There'll be a lot of grievance building. There'll be a lot of inefficiency in the whole system. Do you realize? So just regulating your own emotions sort of help you in managing your entire team, sort of eventually look at a long term success. And we're talking about being successful in this system for your goals eventually. और हम काफ़ी चीज़ों के ऊपर सालाना या क्वार्टरली बेसिस पे काम कर रहे होते हैं. हाउ इज़ दैट? क्योंकि हमारे गोल्स उस हिसाब से, केपीआईज हमारे उस हिसाब से डिवाइड हुए हुए होते हैं. अगर उनकी अचीवमेंट के लिए आपकी टीम में कोहेजन नहीं है, सिनर्जी नहीं आ रही है, of course you will fail by your deadlines. They will not be working as much as you want them to. Of course motivation eventually hoti hai. People need to be, of course, performing certain number of tasks to make sure that they're there and they're fulfilling their KPIs. But maybe that could have been just much more better should your team be on board with you for the entire cycle. So, building upon it further and going into the details, like the vendor diagrams have really nicely explained. So, internet intelligence quotient is something that doesn't probably change. It is stable over a lifetime. Your personality is eventually the same. Emotional intelligence talks about flexible. It is flexible, of course. It is able to change. Yes, I think this is something that we are trying to work on and actually trying to communicate the same message here. अगर आपकी टीम में फिलहाल कुछ स्किल्स नहीं है जो कि कुड बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ, अगर मैं आपको एजुकेशन सिस्टम या या सो उसमें होता ये है कि यू रियलाइज कि बच्चे अक्सर हमारे वो स्किल्स लेकर एजुकेशन सिस्टम से नहीं आ रहे. कॉर्पोरेट की शिकायत क्या है कि द स्टूडेंट्स दैट वी आर गेटिंग फॉर इवन एमटीओ प्रोग्राम्स, व्हाई आर देयर एमटी प्रोग्राम्स इवेंचुअली मैनेजमेंट ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स क्यों होते हैं? बच्चे कल्चर को अडेप्ट करना शुरू करें. दे डोंट नो व्हाट टू डू. They just, they have come from theoretical knowledge, and this practical world is different for them. To understand that better, some things in some areas are to be explained in that particular training program where they understand the culture of the organization, right? और जब इस सिचुएशन में आपको बिठाया जा रहा होता है, आपको समझना होता है कि हो क्या रहा है और कैसे करना है. तो लेट्स से आपने क्राइटेरिया तो अपना फुलफिल किया टू कम टू दिस जॉब, यू फुलफिल दैट एंट्री टेस्ट एंड रिक्वायरमेंट्स, यू हैव द राइट सीजीपीए एक्सेट्रा, आपने ये इंटरव्यूज भी क्लियर कर लिए. अब बात आती है उस एनवायरनमेंट में ब्लेंड इन होने की. उधर आप एडजस्ट ही तब करेंगे व्हेन यू विल बी एबल टू सॉर्ट ऑफ वर्क अराउंड विद योर इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस, और उसको मनूवर करना, उसको फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी के साथ कहना चाहिए, डेवलप करना ओवर टाइम, स्किल सेट को भी बिल्ड करना इज एब्सोल्युटली क्रूशियल फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर जॉब. You cannot thrive amongst a number of people. We are social beings. We are these emotional beings, like I said. They need something to actually feed on, and that has to do with a very cordial environment that you might have, right? And that could be just built by being, maybe, like very rightly mentioned, आप hyperactive हो सकते हैं, आपकी comprehension बहुत amazing हो सकती है, आपके analytical skills अच्छे होंगे, आप multi talented हैं, आपकी memory बहुत अच्छी है, आपकी concentration ज़बरदस्त है, आपका focus बहुत अच्छा है. At the same time, आप पेपर में बहुत अच्छे हैं, you're an ideal person on the paper, but how are you in the practical world is what's going to matter really. So a combination of both become the ideal recipe for success. जी.
Thank you very much for this elaborative answer. I mean, really, I think our viewers will get this idea now why exactly it is so important that we should have this balance between EQ and IQ now. Why? Because I will just build on what you said, that there is a lot of pressure, and we need to understand that everybody is going through. Abhi jaise, if you talk about Pakistan, there are economic issues right now. There are other certain issues, and there is information load. Everybody gets to know everything just that quick, and this sometimes adds to the jeopardy. So everybody has a stress trigger. Everybody understands and knows that something bigger is going on at one end, and on the other end it definitely affects them big time. See, so building on that, I will have to have these a couple of cents of mine as well, because Abhi will be definitely going on to certain elements that are very important when it comes to emotional intelligence, especially at workplace. There could be a lot of heat going on. Sometimes वो tense हो जाती हैं situations. The other times ये होता है कि people are just working together. Sometimes even people get triggered because the way somebody called them or said hello to them. You
True.
see, so I think that trigger can be nullified. This is one of the strategies that I personally use, is that I take at least 1 second pause. Why? Because there are two parts of our mind that are at work. It is consciousness and it is subconscious. So
Right.
conscious, or what I will call first brain, is what helps me do 95% of the tasks, but those tasks don't need a lot of thought process on the back, like opening the door, or just warming up my car, or just shaking a hand. That comes very automatically to me. But when we are into a discussion, and especially when it comes to managing emotions, that is with the brain too. That should be with the brain too. And if you look at the human limbic system, the way the information approaches us through five senses that we have, it first goes to a region in the brain that is impulsive. That is actually with the mind one, I would say. You see, and that impulsive reaction is because we are having this notion with us. It's part of our very uh, physiology, survival instinct, that we always trying to avert the threat, always trying to avert the threat. So I'll actually like to showcase a comment from my teacher as well, Sir Ahmad Bashir. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. It's really an honor that you are part of it. So thanks a lot for the motivating words, sir. So in that sense, I'll conclude my opinion for now, that we got to take these very, very simple adjustments, make these simple adjustments, that at
Uh-huh.
least we can try to calm ourselves down first, take that 1 second pause, so that the information could be through to the brain too, that is actually our prefrontal cortex, that does all the logical thinking. So if I'm viewable, if people can see me on the camera as well, this is here where all the information comes to your brain through your nervous system. This is the part right at the back of my brain, my head, where that very, I would say, emotional part, which manages emotions, are there, and it gives me an impression. यार वो चीखा तुम पे, you have to actually respond in the same way. भैया तुम क्या कर रहे हो, and I will respond impulsively. So if I take that 1 second pause, the information comes here, the front of my head. That is the PFC. Neocortex से होती है, फिर prefrontal cortex पे आती है, which does all the logical thinking, और वो 1 second मुझे बताता है और बचाता है from that impulsive reaction. So could be one of the strategy, building on all what you said. So if we just move to the next slide, and
Yes,
have
please.
your opinion on that.
Yes, please. While you're at it, I'd like to really comment additionally to that. It makes so much right sense. So the three strategies जो शुरू में यहाँ पास concept आया कि जब कोई situation के साथ when we are confronted, there are two things that we do. Either it's flight or either it's, what is it?
uh, it was fight or flight, you
Right.
know.
So either you're fighting or you're flying away. Simple. There's a third concept that came in later and that talked about freezing. So the three F's we're talking about is either fighting it, freezing into it, or maybe taking a flight, right? So इन तीनों इमोशंस को cater करने के लिए बड़ी एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए बड़ी आपने अच्छी बात की and I really appreciate कि we were able to make a link to the scientific theory for this as well. So हदीस भी है कि अगर आपको किसी बात पे गुस्सा आया, परेशान हो या जो भी सिलसिले हैं, उसको देखते हुए काइंडली अगर आप खड़े हैं तो बैठ जाएँ, बैठे हैं अगर खड़े हैं तो चलने लग जाएँ, समथिंग रिलेटिव टू दैट. सो इट इज़ ऑलवेज़ एन एडवाइस लाइक यू सेड, टू टेक अ सर्टेन नंबर ऑफ सेकंड्स टू जस्ट रिलैक्स फर्स्ट. You can't just be impulsive about things like I mentioned as well. Or I have always noted one thing since you gave a tip. I'd like to also add another tip here. सो फॉर ऑल द पीपल आउट देयर, जिंदगी में एक चीज को बांध लें जो एटलीस्ट मैंने जरूर बांधा हुआ है, एंड आई हैव रियली सीन सक्सेस कमिंग ओवर टू मी फॉर दिस. डोंट लेट others behaviors define yours. They are being whatever they are. Don't let their behavior dictate what your behavior should be. So let's say अगर कोई वाकई आपको सलाम नहीं कर रहा है, however they are reacting, you don't have to be like them. And if you are going to be angry at them, तो बात तो वही हो गई कि जो सब उन्होंने किया, उन्होंने अपना बिहेवियर डिक्टेट करा दिया आपके ऊपर, राइट? सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी रियली नीड टू लुक इनटू. नंबर वन. नंबर टू, अक्सर लोग कहते हैं जी मुझसे गलत बात बर्दाश्त नहीं होती. इंटरेस्टिंग बात यह है कि अच्छी बात तो हर कोई बर्दाश्त कर लेता है, बर्दाश्त करनी ही गलत क्या बुरी बात होती है थोड़े टाइम के लिए. ऑल यू नीड टू डू इज टेक अ लिटिल पॉज लाइक Sahanan said and actually proceed from there. That will actually help you decipher a logical response to whatever the situation is. So yeah, ji Sahanan.
Thank you very much for the elaboration, ma'am. So, if we just proceed a little further, this is this grid of emotional intelligence, because you know what, as a human being, I have two kinds of what I would say dimensions. One is what I would call inner dimensions, that is known to me, and the other one is that the presentable personality that I have for others when I go into any certain setting, that it just keeps on changing. So, how do you think that we can manage when it comes to self awareness? Let us just talk about self awareness, why it is so important, and why the virtue of solitude that we used to have before technology. Because you know what, you could just switch off your television almost 3 decades ago, and you could just sit and relax and then think about yourself, think about your behavior all day long, contemplate. But now it has actually become what I would say a leverage that you have to give it to yourself. So because this smartphones and all the pings and everything, so this actually doesn't allow us that time to contemplate, think over what I've done and how could I improve myself. So nowadays, how could we make the best out of self-awareness given all these, you know, limitations?
So I think usually, generally, though we have people in the market also. I mean, they're called therapists, they're called emotional. You know, we have doctors out there, psychiatrists are out there to actually decipher certain disorders that you might have. But that's like the extreme range I'm talking about. Coming to the very lower level, self awareness क्यों जरूरी है? ये इस तरह है कि आपने खाना बनाना है और आपको इंग्रेडिएंट्स नहीं पता कि कौन से डालने हैं, और ये क्यों होगा, खाना कैसे बन जाएगा. सो व्हेन यू डोंट नो द रूट कॉज, लेट्स जस्ट से, तो आपको प्रॉब्लम का डेफिनेशन करना नहीं आएगा, उसको डिस्क्राइब करना नहीं आएगा, उसको साइलो से ब्रेक डाउन करके उसके ऊपर एक्ट अपॉन करना नहीं आएगा. दैट्स एज सिंपल एज दैट. Unless and until you don't realize what is an issue, you cannot know what the issue is. सिंपल इज दैट. ये इसी तरह है कि दरवाजा खुला हो और आपसे कहा जाए कि जी काइंडली हवा का आना बंद कर दीजिए, आपको पता ही नहीं है दरवाजा मौजूद भी है कि नहीं, आप मसले का हल नहीं निकाल सकते. सो सबसे पहले तो फीडबैक रियली मैटर्स, बिकॉज देयर आर पीपल अराउंड यू टू गिव यू a very solid definition of how this is wrong or that is wrong, or somehow they can actually come to aid in letting you know something is out of order. Number one, आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ योर ओन इशू इज समथिंग दैट यू नीड टू नो. आप बहुत ही कॉर्डियल इंसान होंगे, आप ऑफिस में काम करते हैं, सबके साथ घुलते हैं, बैठते हैं, लेकिन आपकी एक बुरी आदत है, आप सबको डिस्कस करते हैं. ये आपको कौन बताएगा? There will be people who will be telling you, or maybe issues when they arise at the workplace, you try to educate yourself by saying okay fine, क्योंकि मैं बात यहाँ की वहाँ करता हूँ, वहाँ की यहाँ करता हूँ, तभी मुझे समझ आना शुरू हुई कि जी इशू मुझ में है, ना मैं ये बात करूँ ना ये बात बढ़े. सो सेल्फ अवेयरनेस इसलिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इशू को रियलाइज करना ताकि उसके बाद उस पर काम किया जाए. आई माइट बी अ वेरी गुड पर्सन एट वर्क प्लेस, मुझे बहुत अच्छा काम करना आता होगा, एट्सेट्रा एट्सेट्रा, मेरी कॉलीग्स हैं, सब कुछ मेरी तारीफ भी हो जाती है। लेकिन अगर मुझे यही नहीं पता कि मैं हेस्ट में बहुत गलतियां कर रही हूँ, या मेरे मुझे गुस्सा बहुत जल्दी आता है, तो मैं हाउ विल आई बी एबल टू एक्चुअली मैनेज दैट पर्टिकुलर सेंटिमेंट, बिकॉज इवेंचुअली तो वो हमें हमारी एफिशिएंसी पे भी काम ले आते हैं ना। दैट इज समथिंग दैट इज, देखिए, आपके इमोशंस इतने हाई हो जाते हैं कभी कि आप कहते हैं मैंने कल से काम पे नहीं आना, मैं काम पे क्यों जाऊं, ये टास्क अब मैं नहीं करूंगा, मेरी ईगो पे बनाई है। How do you realize why are we not catering to that? So awareness जरूरी है. Why is your ego so big a problem right now? Let's handle that. उसको हैंडल करने के लिए आई थिंक सेल्फ अवेयरनेस पार्ट रियली प्लेज अ वेरी वेरी वाइटल रोल जी।
Thank you very much, ma'am. And before we move to the next topic, maybe second last for the day, because it's already like 30 minutes, and I can pretty much understand the way we are getting all the responses from our viewers.
Yeah.
If anybody has any question, we'd literally love to have it answered. So all you need to do is just write your question in your comment section. It will definitely show up here. हम उसको फ्लैश भी करेंगे सामने, so that everybody could have a look at it. और definitely उसके बाद we will come up with suggestions. So it will be great, honestly, if you could ask your questions so that everybody could learn, including us as well. So moving
Absolutely.
to certain realms,
जी।
we talked about self-awareness and how it is helpful, so that I could look at my own self and see where I can actually help myself. What about these realms? How exactly, what are these multiple dimensions that I carry as a human being that I should be aware of? Because usually ये लग रहा होता है कि most of the people, they're not even aware that they're not just one, they're one person when it comes to physical existence. I have two hands like every human being, two eyes like every human being, but I can have multiple personalities that I'm presenting.
ट्रू।
At least I'm not the same at work what I used to be at what I am at home, by the way. And at home, among my family, I have certain personalities as well. So how do I carry all those personalities? How do those personalities can be improved one at a time? And there is another digital personality as well. Like I have digital presence on online as well. People can go on my Facebook or LinkedIn persona without even saying me. They can develop opinions about me. So how exactly, as detailed in our slide, that there are different realms, why it is so important that we should actually work on interpersonal realm, personal realm, and the adaptability realm? So how exactly this could help me improve myself?
I think I'd really appreciate अगर हम इसको and of course like we said we'd rather answer questions than impart knowledge right now, because it's always interesting to cater to the issues than coming here. So interestingly, what we have to speak about is, if I could, I would ask everybody to take a screenshot of this particular slide. Why is that? This is a classification of how you really need to really cater to yourself. आप इन चीज़ों और इन एरियाज पे काम करें, आई थिंक यू विल रीच अ लेवल that is closer to getting successful in whatever you require in life, not just workplace, not just corporate life, not just whatever you're doing. When we're coming to intrapersonal realm, we're talking about something that has to do with you and your personality in itself. That has to do entirely for your inner self, right? We're talking about self awareness, like we just थोड़ा सा हमने स्पेशल लाइट शेड की, असर्टिवनेस, आपकी अपनी पर्सनल क्वालिटीज ट्रेट्स, आपकी इंडिपेंडेंस हो गई, आपका खुद के लिए रिगार्ड क्या है, आप हाउ इंडिपेंडेंट यू आर, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. Interpersonal realm is where you come out of your own self and now you're talking about people to people. So we're talking about social skills here. आपके अंदर एम्पैथी है कि नहीं, आपके अंदर एहसास है, कहते हैं ना सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी का एहसास है कि नहीं है, और आपकी आपसी ताल्लुकात में हाउ कर्टियस आर यू, हाउ हम्बल आर यू. Then comes the adaptability realm. Now we're talking about myself, others, and now there is now flexibility that we've got to show. Problem solving between things. There's reality testing we're talking about. Now we've come out of our realms and now coming to a real world scenario. और अब हम लोगों के साथ coexist करने की बात कर रहे हैं. The next one goes to the stress management realm, and this is about now you're supposed to handle whatever the, let's just say, repercussions are because of your adaptability and of course interpersonal relationships. अब आपने स्ट्रेस को हैंडल कैसे करना है, सेल्फ स्ट्रेस की कितनी टॉलरेंस है आपके अंदर, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. फिर हम आ जाते हैं, गिवन द ब्रेविटी ऑफ टाइम, क्विकली टू द जनरल मूड realm. Now this is where you regulate your behavior. This is all about that. So understanding yourself as for starters, then maintaining cordial relationships among people that you are working with, then the adaptation that you need to create a balance about, then this managing your own stress with other people, and of course in the end you're generally managing your mood, and of course dictating how relationship should be taken forward, be it workplace or wherever. So this is very interesting to understand that this is what the whole plan talks about. I really appreciate if, Sir Hanan, you could shed some light here, and of course we can go on to
Ma'am,
answer questions also.
thank you very much, ma'am. We have a couple of questions, so if I reckon we should address those first. So we have the first question from Dr. Nadeem Faisal. So the question actually goes as how emotional intelligence helps and facilitate the organizational process. I reckon this is the whole question. How exactly it facilitates the organizational process. Then we have a couple of questions as well. We have a question from Mr. Atif Mahmood as well. We'll get back to that later. But for now, I think Dr. Nadeem's question is pretty much what I would say
Relevant.
important for us. So how
Yes.
would we actually work on that?
Okay,
Yes.
so quickly coming to this answer, I think if Dr. Nadeem probably have missed the first starting of our session where we talked about how people work as organisms, like he's also written there. So we all work together in a company. They're reporters, they're reportees, and your reporting lines are in place. हम सब एक स्ट्रक्चर के फॉर्म पे काम करते हैं किसी भी दायरे में जब भी हम काम करते हैं. ठीक हो गया. आज आप पेपर पे बहुत अच्छे हैं, यू आर एक्सीलेंट ऑन पेपर, बट बाय द एंड ऑफ द डे व्हेन यू आर नॉट एबल टू कम्युनिकेट इश्यूज, यू आर नॉट एबल टू टॉक टू ईच अदर एटसेट्रा ऑफ कोर्स हमारे मसाइल का जो है ना हल नहीं निकल सकता इफ यू आर नॉट गेटिंग अलोंग दैट वेल, एंड ऑफ कोर्स बाय द एंड ऑफ द डे एफिशिएंसी सफर्स एज वेल. I think Dr. Nadeem has also made a little change in his G. So you're right. The question is how EI helps and facilitate organisms
Yeah,
process.
that was actually my. I think I just read it a bit
That's all right. That's all right.
hastily. So it's right. His question actually is exactly how you're addressing it.
So, if you're talking about self awareness and then talking about coming to self management and regulation, if that's the question, I'd really appreciate if Nadeem Saab could say, say yes to that. ताकि फिर हम उस पे बात करें. However, we were talking in context to corporates. We're not going into biological, let's just say descriptions of things. However, emotions play a vital role in regulating your own behavior and how your attitude is everywhere, wherever you're working. Based on that, we talked about it. G. Can we move on to the next question and then maybe, after the correction, we can come to this one?
Well, we
G.
definitely can. And we have this next question from Mr. Atif Mahmood. A very important
G.
question, by the way. Uh, how to handle if someone's shouting at peer in front of juniors?
Okay, so I think this is a comment we both can make, Hanan Saab. I think if you may let me take the lead.
Okay.
So पहली बात जो unfortunately senior हैं और अगर वो जूनियर अगर पीयर ही है सेम लेवल भी है या जो सीनियर भी है लेकिन रिस्पेक्ट सबकी होती है फिर तो ज़रूर could you please encourage everybody to understand what emotional quotient and intelligence is all about. Why? Because respect सबकी होती है, be it a janitor, be it
Perfectly right.
anybody. But हमारे पास थोड़ा social setting और culture कुछ इस तरह है that we don't really expect. हालांकि अभी नारायण साहब इसी बाउंड्री की बात कर रहे थे. हम गुजरते हुए फीमेल या मेल कैंडिडेट के लिए अगर रास्ता खोलते हैं तो अगर जैनेटर भी गुजर रहा है उसके लिए खोलने में कोई बुराई नहीं है. Long story short, even if they are doing such a thing, again, please take some time. Do not react in front of them. You can always take them
Yeah,
to a corner, speak to them personally, because आज जो वो कर रहे हैं अगर आप भी वही एटीट्यूड रिपीट कर जाएंगे सबके सामने तो उनमें और आप में फर्क नहीं रहेगा. And like
exactly
I
right.
very just a few minutes earlier I was just speaking about how don't let others dictate your behavior. Simple as that.
Perfect.
अगर वो ऐसा कर रहे हैं, take
So
them into confidence and please speak to them. जी Sahnan, something you
perfectly
could
right.
add.
So just building on this, ma'am, I think it depends on the situation first, because the first thing an emotionally intelligent person will do is to diffuse the situation. They will go for diffusal, and the
Hmm.
best strategy to diffuse a situation in this sort of a scenario is to keep calm, to stay calm, because you know what, people always respect silence at the right moment in the right way. They always respect that. They talk about it for days that okay, look, so much was happening, but the person, they kept their composure. So first things first, we got to keep our composure. We got to stay
Hmm.
intact. We got to take whatever heat is coming on to us very honorably, very professionally. And this actually, you know, we are very much worried about the opinion people have, how they judge us. Very
Yeah,
good.
true.
That is the best option. I would take it as an opportunity. You know, if somebody is doing that to me, and I will take it as an opportunity to make a statement to the others that look, I'm a composed person. On the other hand, yes, if it happens, I don't know what happened to that person. You'd never know something is going on in the family. And I think all of us can be very emotional about our family issues. We never
Very true.
know. We never know that the person might not be feeling well. They might be running temperature. They might have had some high blood pressure issues or something like that. So there could be various reasons. So the first thing is to diffuse, and how to diffuse that is that we can go for silence. That really helps. Keeping our composure, giving this message to everybody else, the juniors. You know what? The juniors will praise you. They will remember you for that. That okay, look,
Absolutely.
our boss kept their composure. You go back to them and you start off, you talk to them. Look, this is what happened. You take it as an advantage. Look what happens to me if you don't work well, and it's just because of you that I had to stay silent, because I didn't want के trajectory आपकी तरफ हो जाती. So this is a win-win situation. We can take it as an opportunity in front of others, and of course to make our team realize
Hmm.
that what kind of heat I have to face for you, and how you can help me out. So composure, I reckon, in my opinion, just building on your thought, that really helps here. So we are we're getting other questions as well. So if any other question is there from any other viewer, would really welcome that. But I'll go back to Dr. Nadeem. He has
जी.
actually, clarified a bit.
Meanwhile, meanwhile you're going there, I'd really appreciate just building on exactly what you said. I think it's important to realize that humility and staying and patience, it will always win. Respecting the other person, being staying humble and basic courtesy आपके अंदर थोड़ा तहम्मुल ज़रूर रखें, स्पेशली विद द राइजिंग intake that we have now from न्यू
Generation Z.
न्यूबीज एंटरिंग द मार्केट, मिलेनियल स्पेशली, जिस पे हमने एक सेशन भी
Yeah,
किया और हमने बताया उनकी डिमांड्स ही और हैं. अगर आप उनके साथ तहम्मुल के साथ नहीं चलेंगे तो आप काम नहीं करवा सकते, फिर आप वर्क फोर्स कहाँ से
absolutely.
लाएंगे? And you need their energy, you need their brain, you need their the updated knowledge that they have. जी.
Perfectly. So I would just add for our viewers that if you just go to our LinkedIn page, you will definitely find a session that we had probably last week. It was all about that how we are going to handle Generation Z, these new millennials basically who are entering, who are like in early 20s or mid 20s. So you can even view that and have a look at it. And secondly, if you want any kind of an information regarding, because we do conduct seminars and workshops, you want to do it for your organization, please feel free. You can have this QR code that is actually being reflected on your screen right now, or you can, in fact, if you take a look at the ticker as well, that's our WhatsApp number. You can log an inquiry there as well. So just log an inquiry, very few questions to answer. It will hardly take you 2 minutes or 3 minutes to fill in the form. If you just scan that QR code, and we'll get back to you with the solution. If you want us to conduct a session at your organization or institute, whatever you're representing. So proceeding further with that, I think there's a lot of time. This is a discussion that we can have for hours, by the way.
Absolutely.
But it we will take this opportunity for sure, that if you invite us at your organizations, and if you invite us to speak to your employees or help you out or offer you a suggestion, because everybody's doing a wonderful job, but no problem at all. But somebody who comes from outside, they always come from with a different idea, with a different understanding of the same situation. So that really can help. But given the time constraint, uh, despite the fact that we really wish to and want to, but we'll have to conclude the session. If you still have any questions, queries, you can leave them in comment section. We'll get back to you in the next session. We'll dedicate at least 10 minutes for this session's questions. That still, if you couldn't, and if you're watching it later, you weren't part of the live session, you still can leave a comment along with the question. We'll get back to you on that. So thank you very much, ma'am, for your time and this insightful elaboration of all this idea. EQ is something that we could keep on talking about, but there are so many dimensions, so many diverse ideas when it comes to this, and the strategies and everything. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, viewers, for your very, very, but I would say, motivating indulgence. There were questions, there were comments that I could just look at coming in, pouring in, and thanks again for your time. And we'll be announcing our next topic with the next 2 days or so. So please keep a tab, follow our page, share it with others, and do share this video with others, your senior managers that you believe, or the people who actually handle all the training sessions, so that they could understand why it is so important, right? So thank you very much to everybody. We'll be concluding it for now. See you next week, same day, same time, with another topic to discuss. That's your host, Anand, and I'll be signing off along with that.